大家好，讀你聽嘅時間，讀你聽2.0啦。今日咧就讀呢個 A.Christie 嘅450 from Paddington， 已經去到21節啦。咁上回咧就講到Paddington 咧繼續問話啦，四周圍咁又同呢個 Lucy Sparrow 就叫做交代下案情啦，問下佢少少嘢咁啦。仲有咧就係佢去揾呢一個 Dr. Morris 咧，就問下佢關於老先生同埋佢個仔死咗個仔 Edmund 嘅一啲往事咁樣都係一啲證供上面嘅補完啦。比較有趣咧就係有一個字同大家講過要查嘅，咁我查咗啦。個字係咩咧？就係 Miss Marple 喺度玩 crossword 嗰陣時候咧，有意無意咧就話俾 Lucy 聽呢個字，佢想知字係叫做 Tontine， 來源係嚟自法文啦，意思咧聯合養老保險制，聯合養老保險。An annuity shared by subscribers to a loan or common fund, the shares increasing as subscribers die until the last survivor enjoys the whole income. 咁即係個聯名嘅參與嘅人士咧都會有得分，每年有個年金啦。咁直至到呢啲聯名嘅人士咧逐一死亡之後咧，咁剩翻最尾一個咧，佢就會攞晒所有養老金啦。仲有一個小補充啦，就係話 A scheme for life insurance in which the beneficiaries are those who survive and maintain a policy to the end of given period。大意上都係咁啦，聯合養老金啦。咁喺呢個故事入面，我相信呢個 Crackenthorpe 嘅第二代咧，應該都會有呢個聯合養老金，定係所有遺產都係分俾呢個 Edmund 嘅兒子呢？因為 Edmund 係大仔嘛，咁大仔又再傳俾大仔。咁文中似乎係有提及到係行呢一個長子機制喎。好啦，咁我哋事不宜遲啦，我哋今日呢就繼續讀落去第21節 Chapter 21。 Nasty things, mushrooms, said Mrs. Kidder. Mrs. Kidder had made the same remark about 10 times in the last few days. Lucy did not reply. Never touch them myself, said Mrs. Kidder. Much too dangerous. It's a merciful providence as there's only been one death. The whole lot might have gone, you know, too, miss. And you too, miss. A wonderful escape you've had. It wasn't the mushrooms, said Lucy. They were perfectly all right. Don't you believe it, said Mrs. Kidder. Dangerous they are. Mushrooms. One toadstool in among the lot, and you've had it. Funny, went on Mrs. Kidder, among the rattle of plates and dishes in the sink, how things seem to come all together, as it were. My sister's eldest had measles, and our Ernie fell down and broke his arm, and my husband came out all over with boils, all in the same week. You'd hardly believe it, would you? It's been the same thing here, went on Mrs. Kidder. First that nasty murder, and now Mr. Alfred dead with mushroom poisoning. Who'll be the next, I'd like to know. Lucy felt rather uncomfortably that she would like to know too. My husband, he doesn't like me coming here now, said Mrs. Kidder. Thinks it's unlucky. But what I say is, I've known Miss Crackenthorpe a long time now, and she's a nice lady, and she depends on me. And I couldn't leave poor Miss Icebarrow, I said, not to do everything herself in the house. Pretty hard it is on you, miss, all these trays. Lucy was forced to agree that life did seem to consist very largely of trays at the moment. She was at the moment arranging trays to take to the various invalids. As for them nurses, they never do a hand's turn, said Mrs. Kidder. All they want is pots and pots of tea made strong, and meals prepared. Wore out, that's what I am. She spoke in a tone of great satisfaction, though actually she had done very little more than her normal morning's work. Lucy said solemnly, You never spare yourself, Mrs. Kidder. Mrs. Kidder looked pleased. Lucy picked up the first of the trays and started off up the stairs. What's this? Said Mr. Crackenthorpe disapprovingly. Beef tea and baked custard, said Lucy. Take it away, said Mr. Crackenthorpe. I won't touch that stuff. I told the nurse I wanted a beef steak. Dr. Quimper thinks you ought not to have beef steak just yet, said Lucy. Mr. Crackenthorpe snorted. I'm practically well again. I'm getting up tomorrow. How are the others? Mr. Harold's much better, said Lucy. He's going back to London tomorrow. Good riddance, said Mr. Crackenthorpe. What about Cedric? Any hope that he's going back to his island tomorrow? He won't be going just yet. Pity. What's Emma doing? Why doesn't she come and see me? She's still in bed, Mr. Crackenthorpe. Women always coddle themselves, said Mr. Crackenthorpe. But you're a strong girl, he added approvingly. Run about all day, don't you? I get plenty of exercise, said Lucy. Old Mr. Crackenthorpe nodded his head approvingly. You're a good strong girl, he said. And don't think I've forgotten what I talked to you about before. One of these days you'll see what you see. Emma isn't always going to have things her own way. And don't listen to the others when they tell you I'm a mean old man. I'm careful of my money. I've got a nice little packet put by, and I know who I'm going to spend it on when the time comes. He leered at her affectionately. Lucy went rather quickly out of the room, avoiding his clutching hand. The next tray was taken to Emma. Oh, thank you, Lucy. I'm really feeling quite myself again by now. I'm hungry, and that's a good sign, isn't it? My dear, went on Emma as Lucy settled the tray on her knees. I'm really feeling very upset about your aunt. You haven't had any time to go see her, I suppose? No, I haven't, as a matter of fact. I'm afraid she must be missing you. Oh, don't worry, Miss Crackenthorpe. She understands what a terrible time we've been through. Have you rung her up? No, I haven't just lately. Well, do. Ring her up every day. It makes such a difference to old people to get news. You're very kind, said Lucy. Her conscience smote her a little as she went down to fetch the next tray. The complications of illness in the house had kept her thoroughly absorbed, and she had had no time to think of anything else. She decided that she would ring Miss Marple up as soon as she had taken Cedric his meal. There was only one nurse in the house now, and she passed Lucy on the landing, exchanging greetings. Cedric, looking incredibly tidied up and neat, was sitting up in bed writing busily on sheets of paper. Hello, Lucy, he said. What hell brew have you got for me today? I wish you'd get rid of that god-awful nurse. She's simply too arch for words. Calls me we for some reason. And how are we this morning? Have we slept well? Oh dear, we're very naughty, throwing off the bedclothes like that. He imitated the refined accents of the nurse in a high falsetto voice. You seem very cheerful, said Lucy. What are you busy with? Plans, said Cedric. Plans for what to do with this place when the old man pops off. It's a jolly good bit of land here, you know. I can't make up my mind whether I'd like to develop some of it myself, or whether I'll sell it in lots all in one go. Very valuable for industrial purposes. The house will do for a nursing home or a school. I'm not sure I shan't sell half of the land and use the money to do something rather outrageous with the other half. What do you think? You haven't got it yet, said Lucy dryly. I shall have it, though, said Cedric. It's not divided up like the other stuff. I get it outright, and if I sell it for a good fat price, the money will be capital, not income, so I shan't have to pay taxes on it. Money to burn, think of it. I always understood you rather despised money, said Lucy. Of course I despise money when I haven't got any, said Cedric. It's the only dignified thing to do. What a lovely girl you are, Lucy. Or do I just think so because I haven't seen any good-looking women for such a long time? I expect that's it, said Lucy. Still busy tidying everyone and everything up? Everybody seems to have been tidying you up, said Lucy, looking at him. That's that damn nurse, said Cedric with feeling. Have you had the inquest on Alfred yet? What happened? It was adjourned, said Lucy. Police being cagey. This mass poisoning does give one a bit of a turn, doesn't it? Mentally, I mean. I'm not referring to more obvious aspects, he added. Better look after yourself, my girl. I do, said Lucy. Has young Alexander gone back to school yet? I think he's still with the Stoddard Wests. I think it's the day after tomorrow the school begins. Before getting her own lunch, Lucy went to the telephone and rang up Miss Marple. I'm so terribly sorry I haven't been able to come over, but I have been really very busy. Of course, my dear, of course. Besides, there's nothing that can be done just now. We just have to wait. Yes, but what are we waiting for? Elspeth McGillicuddy ought to be home very soon now, said Miss Marple. I wrote to her to fly home at once. I said it was her duty, so don't worry too much, my dear. Her voice was kindly and reassuring. You don't think, Lucy began, but stopped, that there will be any more deaths? Oh, I hope not, my dear, but one never knows, does one? When anyone is really wicked, I mean, and I think there is great wickedness here. Or madness, said Lucy. Of course I know that is the modern way of looking at things. I don't agree myself. Lucy rang off, went into the kitchen and picked up her tray of lunch. Mrs. Kidder had divested herself of her apron and was about to leave. You'll be all right, miss, I hope? She asked solicitously. Of course I shall be all right, snapped Lucy. She took her tray not into the big gloomy dining room, but into the small study. She was just finishing her meal when the door opened and Brian Easley came in. Hello, said Lucy. This is very unexpected. I suppose it is, said Brian. How is everybody? Oh, much better. Harold's going back to London tomorrow. What do you think about it all? Was it really arsenic? It was arsenic, all right, said Lucy. It hasn't been in the papers yet. No, I think the police are keeping it up their sleeves for the moment. Somebody must have a pretty good down on the family, said Brian. Who's likely to have sneaked in and tampered with the food? I suppose I'm the most likely person, really, said Lucy. Brian looked at her anxiously. But you didn't, did you? He asked. He sounded slightly shocked. No, I didn't, said Lucy. Nobody could have tampered with the curry. She had made it, alone in the kitchen, and brought it to table. And the only person who could have tampered with it was one of the 5 people who sat down to the meal. I mean, why should you? Said Brian. They are nothing to you, are they? I say, he added. I hope you don't mind me coming back here like this. No, of course I don't. If you come to stay, well, I'd like to, if it won't be an awful bore to you. No, we can manage. You see, I'm out of a job at the moment and I get rather fed up. Are you really sure you don't mind? Oh, I'm not the person to mind anyway. It's Emma. Oh, Emma's all right, said Brian. Emma's always been very nice to me. In her own way, you know. She keeps things to herself a lot. In fact, she's rather a dark horse, old Emma. This living here and looking after the old man would get most people down. Pity she never married. Too late now, I suppose. I don't think it's too late at all, said Lucy. Well, Brian considered. A clergyman, perhaps, he said hopefully. She'd be useful in the parish and tactful with the Mothers' Union. I do mean the Mothers' Union, don't I? Not that I know what it really is, but you come across it sometimes in books. And she'd wear a hat in church on Sundays, he added. Doesn't sound much of a prospect to me, said Lucy, rising and picking up the tray. I'll do that, said Brian, taking up the tray from her. They went into the kitchen together. Shall I help you wash up? I do like this kitchen, he added. In fact, I know it isn't the sort of thing that people do like nowadays, but I like this whole house. Shocking taste, I suppose, but there it is. You could land a plane quite easily in the park, he added with enthusiasm. He picked up a glass cloth and began to wipe the spoons and forks. Seems a waste, it's coming to Cedric, he remarked. First thing he'll do is to sell the whole thing and go breaking off abroad again. Can't see, myself, why England isn't good enough for anybody. Harold wouldn't want this house either, and of course it's much too big for Emma. Now, if only it came to Alexander, he and I would be as happy together here as a couple of sandboys. Of course, it would be nice to have a woman about the house. He looked thoughtfully at Lucy. Oh well, what's the good of talking? If Alexander were to get this place, it would mean the whole lot of them would have to die first. And that's not really likely, is it? Though, from what I've seen of the old boy, he might easily live to be 100, just to annoying them all. I don't suppose he was much cut up by Alfred's death, was he? Lucy said shortly. No, he wasn't. Cantankerous old devil, said Brian Easley cheerfully. 咁呢節讀完啦，基本上就係圍繞住 Lucy 啦佢同 mrs.Kidder 嘅對話啦，佢同老先生 Crackenthorpe 嘅對話啦，短暫同 Emma 嘅對話啦，仲有 Miss Marple 啦，最後仲有 Cedric 啦，同埋 Brian， 其實都係講緊 Lucy 同呢一家人，主要係同呢一家人嘅互動啦咁樣。其實都係維持原判啦，即係都係講佢哋嗰個即係 Alfred 死咗之後嘅一啲狀態啦。似乎真係冇人對於 Alfred 嘅死有啲咩大影響。親生仔、親生兄弟係咪？竟然係個反應係得咁少，最大反應我諗算係 Lucy 啩。咁但係 Lucy 實在太忙啦，太多嘢做啦。咁點解咧？就因為所有 Crackenthorpe 嘅成員都因為砒霜毒啦，咁啊全部都係要瞓喺病床度啦， 咁當然當中咧亦都有啲係好翻啊，咁譬如 Harold 啦 ，Harold 已經走埋添啦，咁啊 Cedric 亦都差唔多好翻啊。身體最差嘅似乎係 Emma 啦，即或者表現出嚟嘅身體最差係 Emma 啦。咁啊老先生亦都好精神喎，又話要食牛排又成啦。呢個 Brian Easley 就翻嚟嘅嚇，咁我相信佢就冇食到嘅。咁各人亦都表達咗佢哋其實呢一篇，我覺得係借佢哋自己親口講啦，對 Lucy 講啦，就係話俾讀者知道，如果佢哋得到財產會點樣用。Cedric 就賣屋咯嚇，根本就唔想喺呢個地方。Harold 亦都會賣啦，因為佢唔中意呢一個房產啦。咁而呢個 Brian Easley 咧，佢就調轉喎，佢又話如果我同阿仔Alexander 攞到咧，我哋會繼續住喺度㗎，我好中意呢度㗎咁樣。Emma 係冇透露到嘅嚇，咁亦都唔意外嘅，因為文中亦都多次提到啦，個人都認為 Emma 係收埋嘅，好多嘢都唔講嘅，所以 Emma 係從來冇提到佢攞到啲錢佢會點樣做，佢亦都唔會講出口啦，因為佢假設佢係都好愛錫爸爸啩，即係唔想去百年歸老住啩。臨走之前就同大家分享幾個字先。第一個字 Providence 文中咧就 mrs.kidder 係Crackenthorpe 嘅我諗佢係主要嘅女傭啦，佢係有幫手介紹呢間屋俾呢個 Lucy 知嘅個小說一開頭嗰陣時，佢話 Providence 意思就係天意啊。佢話真係呢個 Crackenthorpe 家族只係一個人死，只係一個獨死，呢個應該係 Providence 啦。中文翻譯係天意，但係如果英文翻譯咧就係 Protective care of God of nature as a spiritual power， 即係一個褒義嚟嘅，好嘅事嚟嘅，有個上天嘅護蔭啦。準確啲翻譯就係上天嘅護蔭啦。Solicitous 係另一個字 ，characterized by or showing interest or concern。咁但係如果係古老啲嘅英文咧，就係解 eager 啦，或者 anxious 啦。咁中文就勉強翻譯做好殷勤啦。Solicitous 咧就都係 mrs.kidder 嘅反應嚟嘅，就係話mrs.kidder 準備走啦，翻屋企啦，然之後就同 Lucy 講，佢話喂，你搞唔搞掂啊？自己一個 solicitously 好殷勤咁講，跟住 Lucy 就 snap back， 即係好快速嘅，得㗎啦，我搞掂㗎啦。咁樣因為 Lucy 係好獨立噶嘛 suppose 即係尤其是做家務，佢係即係好有自信啦，所以佢 snap back， 得噶啦，我自己搞掂啦，你走啦咁樣。最尾一個字啦，就係 cantankerous 文中好最尾嗰度啦，就係用 Brian Easley 把口去形容呢個老先生啦，就係話佢 cantankerous old devil， 即係話佢脾氣暴躁啊，又中意嗌交啊，或者唔合作啊，咁樣一個咁嘅意思 cantankerous。好，係咁多，我哋下次再見，拜拜。